Commander Zethkar of the Valorian Empire stood before the massive viewport of the Galactic Military Academy, watching the chaos unfold in the courtyard below. 3 dozen Catherian cubs, each the size of a small bear with razor-sharp claws and teeth that could shred titanium, were howling in perfect, ear-splitting harmony. The sound reverberated through the reinforced walls, causing several junior officers to cover their auditory receptors in pain. "Sir," Lieutenant Vrax approached cautiously, his scales rippling with anxiety. "The cubs have been like this for 37 minutes. The other species' younglings can't concentrate on their combat training." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Catherians were their most valued allies, apex predators from a death world where even the plants tried to kill you. Their cubs were being trained alongside other species' offspring as part of the Galactic Unity Initiative. But integrating predator younglings with the rest of the galaxy's youth had proven challenging. "Where is caretaker designation 7749? He asked, though he already suspected the answer. "The human female is in her quarters, sir. Resting period as per her schedule." The commander's 4 eyes narrowed. 3 months ago they'd been desperate. The Catherian cubs couldn't be separated. Pack hunters by nature, isolation drove them into violent frenzies. But together, they were equally impossible to manage. 17 different species had attempted to serve as caretakers. The cubs had injured 12 of them and driven the other 5 to nervous breakdowns. Then the humans had offered one of their own. Zethkar remembered his skepticism when Sarah Chen had walked into his office. She was small even by human standards, barely reaching his chest plate, with short dark hair and tired eyes. She'd just graduated from something called early childhood development and spoke in soft, measured tones that made her seem utterly unremarkable. "I understand you're having trouble with some children," she'd said simply. Children. The Catherians were classified as Class A predators, and she'd called them children. The first day had been a disaster waiting to happen. Zethkar and his entire security team had watched through the observation deck as Sarah entered the cubs' containment area. The pack immediately surrounded her, growling low in their throats, testing this new potential threat. Sarah had done something that defied all military logic. She'd sat down. Not in a defensive crouch, not with weapons ready, but cross-legged on the floor like she was about to read a story. The cubs had circled her, confused by this strange behavior. Then she'd started humming. It wasn't a complex melody, just a simple, repetitive tune that seemed to resonate at a frequency that made even Zethkar's scales settle. One by one, the cubs had stopped growling. The smallest one, barely larger than a human torso but still capable of tearing through steel, had approached cautiously. Sarah had extended her hand palm up, making no sudden movements. When the cub sniffed her fingers, she'd gently scratched behind its ears. Within an hour, all 36 cubs were curled around her like oversized house pets. "Impossible," Zethkar had muttered. But that was just the beginning. Over the following weeks, Sarah had established routines the cubs not only followed but seemed to crave. Morning exercises became games. Combat training became structured play. The cubs learned discipline not through fear or dominance, but through something the human called positive reinforcement. Most remarkably, she'd instituted nap time. "Nap time?" General Korath had asked during a briefing, his tentacles writhing in confusion. "These are warriors in training, not infants. They're children who've been overstimulated," Sarah had explained patiently. "Their brains are still developing. They need regular rest periods to process what they've learned and regulate their emotions." Emotions. She spoke of Catherian cubs having emotions like they were sentient beings rather than living weapons. But it worked. During the scheduled rest periods, the cubs would curl up in neat piles around Sarah's chair, while she read to them from various galactic databases, everything from tactical manuals to poetry from the Andorian systems. Her voice, soft and steady, seemed to have an almost hypnotic effect on the young predators. The problems only arose when Sarah wasn't there. The first time she'd taken a sick day, the academy had nearly shut down. The cubs' howls had shattered, windows 3 sectors away. They'd refused to eat, ignored all commands, and had worked themselves into such a frenzy that emergency medical teams had been called in to sedate them. "They think she's abandoned them," the Academy's xenopsychologist had explained. "For pack hunters, abandonment equals death. They're grieving." Now, listening to the renewed howling, Zethkar realized they'd made a critical error in the schedule. "Lieutenant Vrax, what was the last entry in Caretaker Chen's duty log?" "She worked a double shift yesterday, sir. The Andromedan delegation visit ran late, and she didn't want to disrupt the Cubs' routine." Of course. The human had exhausted herself maintaining stability for everyone else, and now her mandatory rest period was causing chaos. "Sir," another aide approached, "Admiral Thexron is demanding answers. The delegation is asking whether we're torturing prisoners in the lower levels." Zethkar made a decision that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. He activated the Academy-wide intercom. "Attention all personnel. Effective immediately, all training schedules, diplomatic meetings, and non-essential operations will be coordinated around the rest requirements of Caretaker Designation 7749. Any questions regarding this directive should be submitted in writing." Lieutenant Vrax's jaw dropped. "Sir, you're restructuring the entire Academy around one human sleep schedule?" "Correct." Zethkar watched as the howling gradually subsided. Sarah had apparently awakened and was making her way to the Cubs. "Do you know what the humans call individuals who can manage 36 apex predator younglings without violence, establish order through compassion, and create loyalty through understanding?" "No, sir." "They call them teachers." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "And apparently teachers need their rest." In the courtyard below, Sarah Chen emerged from the main building, and the transformation was immediate. The Cubs stopped howling and rushed toward her, their previous distress forgotten. She greeted each one individually, checking for any signs of upset, before guiding them back into formation for their afternoon lessons. The Galactic Military Academy, home to the most advanced tactical training facility in 17 systems, had just restructured its entire operation around a human woman's nap time. And somehow that made perfect sense. As Zethkar watched Sarah begin the Cubs' afternoon routine, he wondered if perhaps the humans had been holding back more than their military capabilities. Perhaps they'd been hiding something far more dangerous than their weapons or their tactics. Perhaps they'd been hiding their ability to turn the galaxy's most feared predators into well-behaved children who just needed proper care and a good nap. The thought was both terrifying and oddly comforting.